Well, hello, everybody. This is episode 126 at Streets and Eats. And today on the podcast, we are going to take you to one of our favorite activities / experiences anywhere on the planet, and that is an African safari. We've got all kinds of tips and ideas for planning and how to make the most out of your safari. Okay, well, I'm awful tired of being stumped on your trivia questions. So I'm just going to ask you a trivia question today. Mine are usually a little bit easier. You'll probably do pretty good on this one. It's got to do with some of the animals you're going to see on safari. Probably the most common animal you're going to see on safari. So first of all, what do you think is the most common animal that you're going to see on a safari? And then I'll ask you a couple questions about it and see how you do.
Well, the most common animal I think that you see, the problem is animal is a wide term.
Okay, so yeah, this is a type of animal, not a specific animal.
Okay, so I think it's an antelope. You're going to see antelope the most because there's tons of them. Everything from a wildebeest to a dik-dik. I mean, there's all kinds of kudu, all kinds of wonderful antelope to see, but there's hundreds of thousands of them. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of antelope. Is that the right answer?
That is the right answer. 25 to 30 different species usually found of antelope in the savanna area. So yeah, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of antelope. What is the range in size of antelopes?
Oh, now that one I think is pretty easy too. The smallest antelope that we saw was a dik-dik. And that is it's just inches tall, maybe, I don't know, 18 inches tall, maybe. And then the largest one, I couldn't even tell you we've seen some pretty big, like we said, there's wildebeest, there's a sable antelope. There's another, I'm thinking of this one. I can't remember what kind it is, but it's a huge antelope.
Like elkland or something like that?
Yeah.
Something similar to that. Yeah, you're right. That's a huge range in size. Like 9 inches is the smallest.
Oh,
species,
9 inches.
And up to 6 feet for the larger ones.
Yeah.
Is a wildebeest? I thought a wildebeest was more of an ox or something like that.
I don't know, but maybe you're right. Wildebeest isn't actually one of them, but there's so many. I mean, I think we've got photos of how many species? I don't know if we have 25 species, but we have quite a few. We love a safari. And I mean, I could go to them over and over and over again anyway, even if it wasn't in a really cool country, which most of these are.
Yeah.
So we've done wildlife viewing as part of our regular travel. We try to go to places where we can see the wildlife that is native to that habitat. We've been to Borneo and we've been to Australia and we've been to Madagascar, which we did a podcast on. But this podcast is particularly about setting up a African safari, how to do it, how to pay for it, what to bring, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, what to expect, all that good stuff. And we, like you said, we've been so many places on safari in Africa. Namibia, Zambia, Botswana, Uganda. And, we haven't even really scratched the surface yet.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of a few places I want to get to. I want to get to Tanzania, where we can do the Serengeti.
Yeah.
I want to get to Kenya, where we can do the Masai Mara. I want to get to more of South Africa. We've done some of South Africa. I want to get to more of Namibia. We've done some of Namibia. But I mean, we really, even in going to the countries that we've already been to, like we said, there's still more to do. And there's a lot more that we haven't done.
Well, and the thing with natural history and seeing animals in habitats, like you said, it's just always different. Even the same place,
right,
a different day is different. The weather's different. The animals behave differently.
Well, it's different animals. I mean, you see them in different spots.
Yeah.
They move. They do things. They're alive.
So for me, and I think for you too, it's always super exciting. Yeah, we could go to the same place over and over again and I think never get tired of it. But, when you're talking about like checking off a list, we're not big list checkers. But at the same time, there's that big 5. You have to see the rhino, the buffalo, the lion, the leopard, and the elephant in the wild. And we've still only seen 4 of the 5 we've tried over and over again to see leopards, and we just haven't done it. So there's going to have to be more safaris in our future.
Okay, so I got to put a little disclaimer in here. First of all, the word safari comes from the old British colonial days, where people went on safari to go kill and make trophy hunters of the big five. So both the word safari and big five can have sort of a negative connotation. Hopefully, neither one of them have continued that so far into this day, because people go on what they call a safari just to do wildlife drives. And they go to see the big five because somewhere along the line it was a list to see. Personally, yes, those 5 animals are pretty cool to see, but there's so many more out there that were on my list to see: crocodiles and antelope and kudu and wildebeest and
I love
cheetah.
Giraffes. Giraffes are my favorite.
And giraffes and zebra. And I mean, to me, the big five, I kind of shy away from that term more than safari. I like the word safari. However, I don't want people to think that we're out going trophy hunting.
Right.
The only thing we're shooting out there is our camera, and we're shooting a lot of photos on our camera.
Yeah. The only reason I really think of the big five is because it is a list, and we just have not seen the elusive leopard yet. So really, my list is a big one now, the leopard. I think we've seen pretty much everything else.
We have not.
We've seen quite a bit.
We haven't seen wild dogs.
We've heard them.
We may have heard them, but we haven't seen them. No, I mean, there's still plenty out there I want to see. One of our very last probably our very last time we went on a wildlife drive, we were in a park in northern Uganda, and the guide said to me, "What do you want to see?" And, we'd been on safari for 3 weeks, and we'd seen so many amazing animals. I basically felt like I was happy.
You were content.
Sure, I hadn't seen a leopard and I hadn't seen everything, but I was very content with what I had. But he was kind of pushing me. No, really, what do you want to go see? And I said, okay, here's what I want to see. I want to see a python. And he looked at me like I was crazy. I'm sure no gray-haired, white lady had ever said that to him before. And so he said, okay, I will show you a python. Well, he tried, and we did chase snakes. We chased a few snakes down, and you could see the grasses moving, and we went and saw snakes.
He was pretty good at spotting them.
And he was very good at spotting them. But unfortunately, the python still eludes me. So see, I'm far with.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say that I've seen everything either, but I do want to see a leopard.
Yeah. But we are happy with what we've seen. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get on with this. We're trying to help everybody kind of plan their own safari.
And hopefully do it where they're not, it's a safari is a once in a lifetime trip, but hopefully you're not spending your life savings to do it.
Right. Exactly. And, you might catch the bug like we have, and it won't be a once in a lifetime trip, and you'll keep wanting to do it over and over again. So in the places that we've been in Africa, we've done safari a few different ways. And there are different types of safaris that you can do. So you want to research to make sure you're doing the one that's going to fit your style of travel the best.
I think the most common one that you're going to find is a group tour, where you might have some fly-in, you might have a small group, you might have a larger group. It even could be an overlander. Mm-hmm. An overlander is a big, huge, amazing looking truck.
Almost like a interplanet truck.
Whenever I think
Star Wars.
Whenever I think of it, I always think of, was it Waterworld, or what was the one with the big trucks going over the desert? I mean, that's what it looks like with these huge tires.
Mad Max.
Like Mad Max. Yeah, that's what I always think of, because these things are huge. I mean, I think you have to have a ladder to get into them. And they're kind of a budget tour. And you're camping. Sometimes you're, from what I understand, because I haven't done this. Yeah. Sometimes you're on the ground. Sometimes you're in a bunch of hotels. Sometimes you're in a campground. You definitely share cooking, like capers, like chores and things like that. And they try and keep it as low cost as possible, and they go all over. But even if you add it up, I mean, you're still going to spend $10,000.
Yeah, you could.
I'm not spending $10,000 to cook your food for you.
Yeah.
It's
if
not
I'm
happening.
Spending that money, someone else is cooking for me.
If I'm spending $10,000, I'm going on a tour with a little bit of luxury, or at least, a bed a few beds. Every night have a bed thrown in. That's for dang sure.
But yeah, you're right. You could sign up for a tour that's been managed for you, and it could include flying into one location and then flying back out,
or even into some of the camps. You know, we
camp,
have friends
exactly.
that are
that's what I'm talking
taking
about.
a tour and they're driving on a bus most of the way, but there's one camp that they're flying into to see elephants or something.
That same tour could then come back and then get in an overlander, for instance, and go off to another destination where you might get out of that and break into smaller groups where you go on 4x4 safari into a park or on a river safari. So, there's a lot of ways to do safari.
And a lot of different tours. So if you start looking into tours, really, really, do your due diligence and go through as many as you can. There also, and this is basically more of what we've done, there's a way to contact people to set up your trip for you. And I would kind of consider that a private tour.
Mm-hmm.
We've never done it where we had someone travel with us. All we've ever done is had them set up the places that we stop. They made the hotel reservations. They rented the cars for us. They did all that kind of stuff. But then we did all of the on the ground work after that. But we didn't have to do any of the planning beforehand. And that was much cheaper than going on a group tour, but it also still wasn't cheap.
Right. And we did have a lot more control that way. So, that's pretty cool. So even on that one, we still did small group tours where we would get out of our truck and climb into a larger 4x4 that seated like 6 or 8 other passengers plus a driver and a guide.
I wouldn't call that a tour, babe. I would call that part of what the lodge offers you.
Right.
What you do is when you get to a lodge and you're checking in, oftentimes, not 100% of the time, but oftentimes the lodge will say to you, oh, okay, every night you get 2 tours or 1 tour or 1 game drive and a spa, or they have like these little extras that are part of the reason that you book their lodge versus another lodge. And those things, you're getting into a 4x4 Jeep and you usually have a guide and a driver. And sometimes you even have like cocktails or lunch even. All kinds of different things are set up, and it's included in your lodging because the lodges also run a lot of the tours. And that's how I think people are doing it much more independently nowadays, because it used to be not too long ago. It seems like we've had the internet and we've had things like booking.com for, ages, but that's really not the case. Trying to find a African lodge, even, I don't know, I'm going to say 10 years, but not that many years ago, it was just hard to do. Nowadays, everything's online, literally everything. So you could easily go in if you wanted to do it totally independently, either buy or rent a car and book your own lodging. And those lodges will often, like I said, have game drives included in their price.
Yeah, safari game drives.
Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't call it a tour, is my point.
Well, that's true. I agree with you. I'm just thinking of different types of safaris that you can do. And like you said, at the different game camps where you go, the safari camps where you go, they have different options for you. How you get there, I guess, varies. You could fly into some camps, or you could drive yourself to some camps, or on a tour, they could bring you to that camp.
Well, there's also a train. Ginny took the Rovos
That's
rail.
Right.
You can also, I'm sure, if you're pretty, adventurous, I'm sure you can find little bus taxis that will take you from town to town, depending on how far you want to go. They're really,
well, we also had friends who did it kind of like a self-drive, except they didn't drive. They were in their own car, but they had a guide who was also their driver that drove them from park to park.
Which kind of was what they really enjoyed it. They thought it was great. You got to know one guy. It was just the two of them. And they did almost the same itinerary we did, except I think they did it backwards than we did. This is in Uganda. And they really enjoyed it. And we both had excellent experiences in the whole country. And we were happy that we did it completely on our own because we don't want to be stuck in the car with the same guy for 2 weeks. But we have done that before, and it's okay.
And we've enjoyed it each time, too. Most times.
There's one time I can think of that we did not enjoy it.
Usually you hit it off really well with your guide and your driver, and you kind of make a new friend, which is kind of cool. So that's another way to think about it.
But I'm going to say, and I really hope someone will tell us if we're wrong, but I don't think that if you're going to go and you're going to take a full on group tour or even a private tour of some sort, you're really not going to spend less than, I would think, $6,000.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal.
When we went to Uganda, it was a little cheaper than that to begin with, just for the car and the actual reservations and the hotels and stuff. But then once we added on all the permits for doing things like the chimpanzees and the gorillas, I mean, we definitely spend at least $6,000 each. So I just don't think it's just not a cheap destination. And so what a lot of people do is they wait until they're later in life to go, which I don't think is bad. I mean, you've got more time, you've got more money. Sure, I think that's great. But on the other hand, Jim and I loved it so much that we're glad we went when we were a little bit younger so that we could keep going back.
That's right. It definitely gets under your skin and you want to keep going back.
And there's more places to go. Like Jim said, I mean, each country has their own habitats. They have their own wildlife, and they have their own just everything is so different everywhere you go. It's just so beautiful.
Well, and we haven't even talked about the culture of the country itself.
We're basically talking about the animals because I think that's most people's draw.
That's the idea of the safari, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me.
So about $6,000, and that's going to cover about 10 days.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
You could, of course, it goes way up from there. I mean, that's for a run-of-the-mill, pretty nice hotels, but nothing spectacular. Certainly not luxury. If you're going to go luxury, you're going to start at $10,000 at the very least, I think. And by the way, that's after you get to Africa. One way to do it cheaper is if you let's say you have a business deal in Cape Town. You can go to Cape Town, South Africa, and then go and take a 3 or 4 day tour to one of the parks, just to one park. There you can maybe do it for like $300 to $1,000, depending on where you're going or how far you have to travel to get there. And of course, some countries really lend itself better than other countries to do that. But you can save money that way if you're going on business trips. I would definitely always extend and try and do a game drive because it's just wonderful.
You want to do that for sure. Okay, when you're planning a game drive, or let's say you get the option of game drives from your camp, we kind of found that they might say you can go on one of 4 different game drives in a day. You can do a morning, early afternoon, a late afternoon, and an evening, let's say. For us, what we've discovered, and we've kind of found this is true pretty much around the world when you're looking for animals and you want to see them in the wild, the best times to go are early morning, sun coming up, or just before the sun goes down.
Or around sunset.
Yeah, that's when the animals are the most active. The nocturnal animals are waking up or finishing up their day and getting ready to go sleep in the morning. The other ones are waking up and moving around. There's just more activity.
The worst time is late morning or mid-afternoon. So we always try to book, like Jim said, early or late. Sometimes that means you aren't going to hit dinner or lunch at the time when you're supposed to, and you have to eat a box lunch. Who cares? I mean, This is, like we said, pretty much a once in a lifetime thing. The other thing, and it's not offered all over the place, but occasionally you'll find someone that offers a full-on night safari where they take their spotlight and the spotter sits on the front of the truck, and he's looking up the trees and for things that you would never get to see otherwise, because they're just animals you can't see. They're nocturnal, they're small, they're it's amazing.
And those are really cool.
If you get a chance to do that, we've gone on every single one we've ever been able to set up.
For sure.
And we have never been disappointed. There are some that we've seen more things and some that we've seen less, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all. It's just fun. You see different things than you've seen during the day. The guides seem to be, for some reason, like, I don't know, they let their hair down a little bit after the sun goes down.
And more talkative.
Yeah, it seems like they're more talkative, maybe because it is a harder thing to do. I don't know. But we've never been let down. So that's another tip I would say is when you're at these lodges, go ahead and try to book a nighttime one if it's available.
Well, and the other thing about those particular times, morning, evening, and night, is Africa can get quite hot. So those midday drives in the heat, that's just not comfortable for anybody. So
including the animals.
Including the animals, which is why you don't see as many, because they're trying to find shade and not moving very much.
If you get a chance, if there's a river or if it's the Delta or whatever, and you get a chance to go on a boat and do a safari, don't pass that up either, because animals react differently to boats than they do motor vehicles. So they, for some reason, whether they're quieter or maybe it's the way people drive them, I don't know, but they seem to be more apt to come closer to you. We did a boat safari in Queen Elizabeth National Park, and those animals all were right up on the water, drinking and, washing and bathing and getting out of the sun. And
they really didn't care about the boat. It's very cool. That was a pretty good sized boat. What would you say? There was like 40 people on that boat?
Oh yeah. That was one of the bigger ones we've ever done.
And we've also done some really small boats on the Okavango Delta. Remember, we did the little Makoros, which are dugout canoes where it was the two of us sitting in the canoe, or the Makoro. It's not really a canoe. And then one guide who was also using the long pole to move the Makoro along. That was really cool. And with that one, you're silent on the water. Hopefully you've got a good guide that's not going to get you into trouble. I've never heard of anybody getting into trouble there. And our guy was really good. He knew where the hippos were, which are the biggest problem in the water. But
also something you really want to see.
Yeah. And so he was able to bring us where we could see the hippos without being in any danger.
He cracked me up because he knew the hippopod. He's like, this male is very aggressive, so we have to stay back. But this one female is friendly. Mm-hmm. She wants to be your pet. She always is interested in the boat. So just be very careful, and we should get a good little show. And we did. We were there for, I don't know, a good 15, 20 minutes, and it was fun watching the hippos in their native habitat, just interacting with each other, paying a little bit of attention to us, kind of keeping us in their sights, but nothing threatening.
Oh, and that also in that Makoro, because it was a longer trip out, I think we were out for 5 or 6 hours, we included a meal. So we also had a meal in that one, which was in a little...
I think we had to pay. The Makoro was one of the ones we actually had to pay extra for.
Right.
The Makoros were run by some type of co-op, and it wasn't included in any of the accommodations. Well, at least not the ones we were staying at. But it was a minimal charge. I mean, I can't remember, maybe $30 a person. But like you said, it was pretty much a good chunk of the day plus lunch. Now the lunch was...
not much to speak of.
Not much to speak of.
It was tasty, and it kept us going.
Okay. And yeah, it was sustenance, I guess.
But we were really supporting the local community.
That's exactly right.
A lot of times you don't really get an opportunity to do that. So that was very cool to be able to do that.
Another one we paid for was in Chobe National Park, where we took a small, I think it was like an 8-seater or 12-seater little motor boat up the Chobe River at sunset. That was fabulous as well, because first of all, you've got the sun going down, so the light is gorgeous
Beautiful
for any
light.
photographers out there. But again, all the animals were right up on the bank, so a lot of them were drinking. We saw antelope nursing. We saw mother elephants leading their babies across the water.
Yeah, a whole troop of elephants swam right across the river in front of us, like a whole parade of elephants. Very cool.
Really close to us. We did see the hippo, like we mentioned earlier, and just so many different things that it was just amazing. I was a little bit disappointed with my sunset shot that they supposedly found a good tree for. I didn't think it was a great one.
It was not the best tree.
But it doesn't really matter. I mean, the whole experience was really quite nice.
Yeah. And because it was that time of day, that it was definitely the time to see the animals interacting and moving around.
And those are not the only boat tours we've taken. There's been a few others that we've taken as well, mostly to see hippos. That's what how you're gonna see hippos. But we've seen swimming snakes, we've seen crocodiles, we've seen, like I said, every kind of land animal as well. So there's plenty to do if you get a chance to do it on the water. Don't pass that by.
That's definitely one of our big recommendations. Always get out on the water, see things from the water. It's a different perspective. Okay, so what else to expect on a safari? Everybody is always asking about the sleeping accommodations. And we've had a pretty wide range of accommodations.
To say the least. We've done everything from cots in a pretty, I would say, low rent,
bare bones, austere,
tent to, I wouldn't say we've done anything luxury. It's just not our style. We don't like spending money on accommodations, as you've probably noticed. We like spending it on experiences.
Right.
So, but we've gotten some that are, I mean, luxurious to me.
Pretty serious glamping, I would say.
Yeah, we'll list some in the show notes, but like one of the ones that sticks out to me was the Kubu Lodge in Chobe.
Mm-hmm.
And there you had these little huts where you walk in and it's just so African deco with some wood bathroom and wood bedroom, and it's got a little porch and you could sit out there and watch everything. We had beautiful little huts in Uganda, and that was more of a little luxury place, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the ones that weren't luxury, like in Botswana, they were still comfortable. I mean, I was never uncomfortable. The only thing about the one tent place was you had to go somewhere else to the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
which can be something to think about. It was safe because it was in an enclosure. So they had people who were watching to make sure no animals went in there. And of course, they're going to take care of you. I mean, that's what every camp is there to do. So you don't really have to worry about that. On the other hand, it's something to sort of keep in the back of your head as you're looking at places that you might want to book.
Yeah. And if you're on a tour, that's, of course, everything's going to be arranged. Sometimes they'll let you, when you're booking your tour, they'll let you set like an accommodation level that you want to stick with. And then you know what you're comfortable with. But like we said, even the lowest level of accommodation that we had was comfortable, clean, safe. And everywhere we went, we had great food. The only time we didn't have really great, just delicious food was those times when we had to-go meals when we were out on a safari, out on like the Makoro or in a 4x4. And then it was just like a really basic packed lunch.
Most of the meals that you get, breakfast is pretty straightforward. I mean, a continental breakfast, nothing to write home about. Lunch usually is a packed lunch if you're getting one. And then dinner is usually a 3-course meal with an appetizer, a main, and a dessert. And like Jim said, pretty much every single one we had, we just loved. And what's really nice about the meals is you're eating them where your hotel is, because all the meals are included in the hotel. And these aren't hotels where you have just massive amounts of people. Mm-hmm. These are little tiny places that have like-minded people, and it's just so much fun to talk to the other travelers.
Yeah.
And we had so much fun doing that, and also talking to the owners of the camp or the managers of the camp. Either way, we just had a good time every single night. actually look forward to it. I mean, it was always nice to come back and get a cold beer from the bar and sit around. A lot of times they would have a campfire. They didn't really have any dancing or shows.
Right.
I think that you find definitely more in the more luxury tours.
Yeah.
Ours was a little bit more bare bones, but this is where you get to really spend time with the people and the other travelers and talking to the staff or whomever is around. And we really had a good time with that.
That really is part of the experience. So I think that's kind of a key, is to take advantage of that, spend the time in the common area, and get to know the other people. And one of the things we found on a few of our drives was that whether the other people were self-driving or with a guide or on a tour, everybody seems to kind of follow the same type of route.
Yeah.
So you do end up meeting up with people that you saw earlier in a different stay later on in your trip. Not necessarily every night, but it's kind of fun when you do, because then you can compare notes and just talk about what all you've seen. And it's really great camaraderie. Unexpected for me.
Yeah. I mean, everybody you meet is fun to talk to. Every single person. We didn't ever get turned off by anyone. But like Jim said, the ones where it's like, oh, you were just at our last one, or the hotel before us. Hey, what have you been doing since? It's like your old friends.
Right.
You may not have even really talked to you. You might have just waved, a quick hello on the way past whatever. But
by the second or third
by
time,
the second night, you're like best
having
friends.
drinks together and watching the sunset together. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And I definitely think it was definitely part of the experience. It's how you both share what you've done and sort of just revel in the fact that you've done this amazing trip to begin with.
Okay, well, we've talked quite a bit about how to get around. And by now, most people listening, I think, know how we prefer to do it. And that's the self-drive. And there's a lot that goes into setting up a self-drive. Probably more than what would fit into this podcast. And I think that would be a really good subject for a future podcast, is just talking about how to set up and go about doing a safe and really productive and good self-drive in Africa. So maybe we'll save that for a later one.
So let's talk about packing. So packing is pretty easy. You've seen all those pictures of people in their safari hat and their long sleeve beige shirt and their long pants that are beige and their hiking boots. Yeah, that's what you wear.
Yeah.
And it's no joke. I don't know about the hat so much. Nowadays they don't have like the pith helmet like they used to, but any kind of outdoor hat is going to work just fine as long as you have a wide brim. Mm-hmm. And when you're in some of the vehicles on the game drives, they will have a roof.
Yeah, some are covered. That's
and
for
some
sure.
Don't. Some are more enclosed than others. So you'll just have to play that by ear. You probably want to wear long socks so that you can keep bugs away from you, especially during mosquito season. Mm-hmm. You definitely want to talk to your doctor about where you're going, and there's probably a few shots that he or she will recommend. And one of the things that you'll need to look at is whether it is a mosquito place and if you'll need to take malarials. We've taken malarials a couple of times, and we like doxycycline the best. We took the other one. What was the name of it?
I don't remember.
I don't remember
we'll put
what
in the
it
show
is.
Notes, the two options.
Yeah, but we liked the doxy the best, and that worked really, really well for us. It didn't really have any side effects or anything, and it was
big,
easy.
Yeah.
So, that's what we liked. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll like that. You might have to try them both.
A lot of places you're going to need a yellow fever shot, and
I think they're doing away with that, but it's not a bad idea to have it anyway.
And actually, a lot of places, if you're going to be going to a few different countries in Africa, some of them do require it and some of them don't. But you have to have it before your whole trip starts. So if you got to do the research, you got to figure out where you're going. I wouldn't recommend everyone just, you're going to Africa, so go get a yellow fever shot. Definitely look at what's required for the country you're going into. We did need one for Uganda, and we also had to get the shot early enough to go into their online system and put in all of our information and like a screenshot of our record showing that we had it. So they were pretty serious about it there.
Speaking of records, I mean, we do live in an online world now, so it is a lot easier usually to get reservations, permits, visas, immunization showing things like during the COVID era and what have you. But it's not a bad idea to have either a folder on your phone or just in your recent photographs, a copy of your passport and your visas and your immunizations and if you take any type of medication, your prescriptions,
Right.
anything that you think could be an issue, just keep a copy of it as a photo on your phone so that you have a backup if you need one.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good tip.
The other things is it's not a bad idea to bring a flashlight because, okay, so everywhere we went has always had electricity, but here's the catch. They turn the electricity off sometimes in the middle of the night.
That's right.
Because they want to save money. So one place we stayed at, it was hilarious. We had to get up at 5:00 in the morning to go gorilla trekking. That was in Uganda. And the place we were staying was on Lake Mutanda. And they were cute little tent places. They had bathrooms in them, I'm pretty sure. But they were pretty bare bones at the same time. And the lodge it had good food. I mean, everything about it was just fine. It was beautiful. We went swimming out in the lake. We went on a boat ride. It was so much fun. But they turned the electricity off. I think it was from 10 to 6.
Yes.
But wait a minute, we had to get up at 5 to go. That meant we were going to have to get up in the middle of the dark. As it turns out, they turned the electricity on for us.
Yeah.
Probably because they make the general rule that it's 10 to 6, but if they have gorilla trekkers, then they'll turn it on for them to get picked up, and maybe they turn it back off.
And
again.
they know what everybody's doing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was pretty interesting. We're kind of like, well, that's okay. We'll get dressed in the dark.
Well, none of these places are on the electrical grid. So they're all operating off a generator.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want the generator noise running all day, all night. I mean, and it's conserving the gas. So it kind of makes sense, but you have to be ready for it.
Along with that, for me, the most important thing that I ever bring is my camera and my SD cards and my batteries. So don't do like I do. Don't think that pretty much you're going to have electricity everywhere and it's okay if I don't charge my battery tonight. No. Make sure that you charge your battery every single night.
While the power's on. Because you don't want to get stuck a day or two without electricity. That didn't happen to us, and we never ran out of power. We had a few extra batteries and stuff. Yes.
But at the same time, it could have. I mean, I could see it happening to people. So just be super, super vigilant about keeping your batteries charged and keeping it maybe an extra one or two.
Well, one other thing that goes along with that is your phone itself. In most of the places we were at, there was no phone service that we could access. Some of them had good Wi-Fi. Some of them didn't have good Wi-Fi. So it was really spotty. One thing you can do if you have the time, and especially if you're doing this a little bit more independently, most of the countries in Africa have very cheap data SIM cards that you can easily get and put in your phone for the time that you're in that country. So that's a really good option. And then that really does increase your access to the internet and to the phone system.
The only thing is, if you're going to do that, you need a little extra time.
Yeah, for sure.
So don't fly in, like, let's say you're meeting a tour. Don't fly in the day before just in time to grab the tour. You want to make sure you have time to get down to the SIM card place.
Yeah.
It always takes longer to do things like that in Africa than
you expect.
The other thing is money. We found ATMs everywhere we went. It wasn't a problem, but we did think the culture around ATMs was a little different.
Oh yeah. In Uganda was really a crazy experience. I think ATMs were fairly new there, and they're trying to go to a non-cash society. So everybody needed to put money in the bank. Everybody didn't really want to deal with using a card, so they would get cash out. And using an ATM was kind of a community experience. I would find myself in the line of about 20 people, and the lines, I think was a completely different notion of personal space in Uganda. So basically everybody was standing about 4 inches apart in an ATM line, even as you're using the ATM.
It was a line, but they were creeping up on you.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody would move together like a solid wall almost of people. And what was really funny was because it was kind of a community event, you'd have some old lady who wasn't really familiar with it trying to use the ATM, and the gentleman behind her really just right over her shoulder, showing her what buttons to push and everything else. And, in our Western mind, we're thinking, wait a minute.
We would never
no one
trust
should be
somebody.
watching me
That's
using
right.
the ATM. So I was very careful to hide my PIN, and I was very friendly with the people who were trying to give me advice on what buttons to push. It was quite an experience. It was a lot of fun.
And we never had a problem.
We never had a problem.
No.
At the camps, you can usually pay with a credit card, but you should definitely have some cash just in case there's a power outage or the system is down, so that you can finish up your bill with cash.
But I also think they didn't take just local monies there. They would take dollars and
Yes.
maybe pounds. Just when you're setting things up, or even if you just go ahead and make reservations and then send them an email, ask them how you can get some cash.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And it's really never a bad idea to carry around like $100 or 100 euros in smaller bills, so that you're kind of ready for those types of situations, and they'll happen. So
They will.
you want to be ready. You definitely don't want to go out and get, $1,000 to carry around in cash. You don't want to make yourself a target. But at the same time, we never really had any problems and didn't see anybody else having any problems.
But you have to understand the way we travel, we do have expensive camera gear. So if you look at us, you can see that, we do have some things that might be stealable. We've never had anyone steal them, but we might. But what we don't do is we don't shop a lot. We're not out there spending money at this shop and that shop and this shop, although we always try to support the locals.
Yeah.
And we always try to buy little knick-knacky things. There's throughout, no matter where you are in Africa, people are making money, whether they're whittling animals, whether they're painting someone else's whittles, whether they're it's out of material or whatever. But there's always something to buy. And we do support that, but we're not, going from shop to shop to shop to shop.
Well, at the same time, another just really good piece of security advice is to don't be showy. Yes, we do have that camera, but we don't leave it around our neck when we're wandering around town unless we're taking pictures. We're not wearing our expensive watches and jewelry and clothing for that
Mainly
matter.
because we don't own those things, but
if
we
did,
wouldn't.
I would recommend that you leave that stuff at home when you're going to be traveling in
That's
these
right.
kinds of places. Don't make yourself a target.
Exactly. I think travel safety, it's always a good idea to stay with someone. Probably, you have your dinner at the camp and you stay in at night at the camps. It's not really someplace, unless you really want to go out looking for the bar scene in some of the bigger cities, to do that. And if you do that, try and go with someone and make sure you take a taxi back to the hotel. Whether you're male or female, doesn't really matter. They know that you're a tourist.
Yeah.
So if there is someone out there with nefarious ideas, then you're going to be the target. So just be careful when you're doing those kinds of things.
Yeah. And like you said, most of the safari camps, they're out in the wilderness. There's no other options. That's where you're at.
And they are going to keep you safe from the animals. However, they cannot be with you 24/7. That's just not how it works. So you need to also just pay attention to your surroundings at all times.
Mm-hmm.
One time I was many times, quite frankly, we've come across snakes. We were at the one in Lake Matanda. Jim comes running back saying, give me the big camera. I've got a baby cobra to take pictures of.
The black mamba.
Was it?
No,
No,
the black mamba. Well, that's what they called it. But it's a baby cobra.
But it was a baby cobra.
The black cobra.
And it was so cute. Oh my God, it was so cute. So I went out there with him to see this baby cobra. Here we are running to this cobra, right?
To the
This
cobra. Yeah.
poisonous snake. And it didn't move. It was still there. And it was just, I don't know, I think it was like 3 feet long.
Mhm.
And it did sit up on its tail and flare its hood for us. And it was just the cutest thing. So we got a few pictures. We didn't touch it. We didn't get too close to it. We have a 400 millimeter lens, so it's not like we had to be right up on it to get a picture. And we got a few pics and we left the poor little baby alone because he was obviously in a little bit of distress. So just be aware. Don't corner animals. One time we were in Alaska and a photographer was chasing around 2 young bears and they treat him for 2 days. He and his girlfriend
get stuck in his tree. The mama came along, of course, and said, "What are you doing?" and chased him up a tree. And they were stuck there for 2 days till someone finally found them and was able to chase away the bear.
So yeah, they were unscathed, but they were scared to death.
Yeah.
And who wants to spend a night in a tree with a bear underneath you?
Respect nature. Don't approach wild animals too close, and make sure that they're aware that you were there without scaring them and being silly. And typically you'll be okay. Really listen to the advice that the guides give you and that the advice that the people in the camps give you for wandering around the camp.
One camp we were at in Uganda was a hippo area. And hippos, like we said before, they are the most dangerous animal in all of Africa. And so they would come up into the camp, which they let them do, and they would lay down literally right next to your tent. Were we in tents or rondevals? I don't know what we were in.
When I was in rondevals.
And
so it was a little more secure.
So they were like, do not wander around at night. After it's dark, don't wander around. They had people who were on guard, but it's just, what if the guard was over the other part of the yard? And we woke up in the morning and we heard them chasing the hippos out. So they were there.
Yeah.
They came up every night, apparently. So just listen to them. They know what they're talking about. They're not trying to lessen your experience. In fact, they're just trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And we never felt unsafe. And we've done this quite a few times. Like I said, we've done things like chasing snakes and stuff. And it's always been fine. So let us tell you one more time. Going on an African safari is one of the most amazing experiences of your life. However, you do not have to spend your entire life savings to do so.
That's right. And while some people would say it's a once in a lifetime experience, if you do it right, you're going to want to do it again. And it'll be a many times in a lifetime experience, just like it is for us. I can't wait to go back, in fact.
Me neither.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love. Hit the like button and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.